Welcome to the podcast where we turn adversity into strength and laughter into resilience. Your host, Joey Misbehaves, a voice that once faced the darkest shadows but found the courage to rise above. This is UnMuffled Banter. It's a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. As someone who knows the weight of anxiety and depression all too well, Joey's here to reach out to those of you who've battled the same afflictions, teased and bullied as a kid for being different. His clothes, his hair, even his name's reason for mockery. But amidst the storm of laughter, he never let it dampen his sense of humor or his compassion for others. In the face of adversity, he stood tall. He defended his friends, taking on the verbal and sometimes physical bashing, all while embracing the power of laughter. And it's from those moments his banter has always remained unmuffled. This is for you, all those warriors out there, fighting battles within themselves. Together, we'll share stories of growth, resilience, and the beauty of finding humor even in the darkest times. This is UnMuffled Banter, and now your host, Joey Misbehaves.
5 years old. That's my earliest memory of being confronted by a bully. And I was standing in line for breakfast. It was my first day of kindergarten. And I didn't know what a bully was. I didn't know what school was. But I did know and I did understand the meaning of a free meal. Because I was a poor kid. And I grew up in situations where I was hungry at times. And as much as I hate to, say that or admit to that, maybe my needs weren't met at home in that aspect all the time. So standing in line at 5 for a free meal, it's something that I was looking forward to. I do recall that. And this older kid, this bigger kid, he'd come up and he'd pushed me out of the way and knocked me down and took my place in line. And yeah, I picked myself up and I dusted myself off and I fought back. And though I may not have been big enough or strong enough to fight this bully off, I wasn't going to allow him to take away something that not only did I want, but I felt like I needed. And I shouldn't have had to feel like I had to fight for a free meal, but I also shouldn't have felt like I had to fight for the next 12 years of my life. But I did. And it was for different reasons. I found myself on the end of bullies because I was smaller than most kids. Because I was more poor than most kids. My pants legs were shorter than what they should have been. So they didn't go down to my shoes. Or my coat was banana yellow, and everyone would tell me, "You're wearing a girl's coat," because it was yellow. And being in kindergarten or first grade, I'd be forced to wear that coat to school. But the moment I'd get on the bus, I would take that coat off and I would shove it in my backpack. And though it may be snowing outside and it may be 28 degrees, I would refuse to wear it. And for the next 12 years, I would refuse to wear a coat because to me, that meant strength. I was consistently trying to find ways to fight off bullies or to fight off the stigma that I was weaker than everybody else. So wearing a coat to me meant that I was weaker, and I wasn't going to allow myself to be seen as weak. So every winter, I was the kid that refused to wear a jacket. And I'd be like, yeah, it's cold, but, I'd rather be cold than wear a coat. And that followed me into adulthood. Even now, I won't wear a coat. I'll wear a hoodie, but I won't wear a coat. And, I would go and I would find other ways to fight off bullies through school. And a lot of that was having to find ways sometimes to hide. Whether that was, running to the bus or, running home or not coming out of the house. But the older I got, the less I ran and the more that I began to fight back. And not only did I fight back, but I started defending those who couldn't fight back or wouldn't fight back. And if I saw somebody else getting bullied, I would step in front of that person because I realized that I could take that verbal bashing or that physical one, and I become known as the kid that was the anti-bully kid. And sometimes that meant getting into fights more often because somebody was always wanting to test me to see if I would run away or stand down. But I always pride myself on never throwing the first punch. And my teachers and my principal come to understand who I was and what I stood for, and knew that if I ended up in a fight, I never was the one to start it. I was always the one that was trying to avoid fighting, or that I was trying to stop somebody else from getting hurt, whether that was physically, mentally, or emotionally. And that gave me strength in ways that I never realized, because I found that I could laugh my way through those situations, because I realized that if I could make the kid that was on the other end of the situation laugh, that, it relieved the tension. Like, I had a kid one time in art class. He smacked another kid with a steel ruler, and I told him to leave the kid alone. Well, he just laughed it off. Well, the next day, he walked by me and hit me with it. And I'm like, dude, you can't do anything to me to hurt me that I haven't already done to myself. And he's like, yeah, whatever. What have you ever done to yourself to hurt yourself? So I grabbed a stapler, and I put 5 or 6 staples in my arm. And I was like, your turn, buddy. And of course, he wouldn't do it. And I popped each one of those staples out, and I flicked them at him. And I was like, if you're going to pick on somebody, I suggest you pick on somebody that is afraid of you. because I'm not. And you're not going to pick on anybody else in this class. Because if you do, then me and you have a problem. And if it's a problem every single day, well, it's a problem every single day. And if I have to get suspended every single day, then that's what'll happen. We'll go to the office every single day. Our parents will be called every single day. And of course, he's like, you don't mean it. And I'm like, well, apparently you don't know who I am, because I'm the guy that always means it. And of course, some other kids talked to him and was like, look, he means it. He doesn't like to fight. He's never thrown a first punch. But he doesn't deal with bullies. He doesn't put up with bullies. And if you're going to bully other kids, he's going to defend them. So we'd suggest that you just leave him alone or leave other kids alone in the class, because he will make it a point to where your parents are aware of the situation, because the teachers know what this kid is about. The principal knows what this kid is about. And I was always proud of that. But there was a few times that I used that to my advantage as well. And that's when I learned that I was capable of manipulation. And manipulation, whether it's for good or bad, to me, isn't right. I don't think you should manipulate people regardless of the situation. And, you know, I would manipulate situations as a kid. I manipulated my mom. You know, I'd do something and she would tell me she was going to beat me, and I'd take her the belt. And I'd be like, well, go ahead, just beat me. And, you know, I'd ram my head into a closet door, or I'd put my fist through a closet door. And, of course, she would start crying and she wouldn't spank me. And that followed me into adulthood as well. And I never used manipulation for malicious reasons. I did use it to get out of a relationship once. I'll talk about that. It was a toxic relationship. I shouldn't have used it, but I did. And I did it in a pretty horrible way. And I'd like to say I regret it, but I don't. But yeah, we'll talk about that. Manipulation in relationships at some point, and how they negatively affect not just yourself, but others around you. Because it's wrong. I admit that. Like, I'm accepting of when I'm wrong, and the fact that I've done wrong in my life. Back to the bully situations. You know, some of the reasons why I was so big against bullies is because in some ways I saw both my brother and my dad as being people who were a bully. And, you know, regardless if that was me being bullied or if I felt like it was my mother that was being bullied. And I would stand up for her in situations where I felt like she was being bullied. Or, you know, I would take a beating from my brother. And, you know, we'd play basketball a lot. And he would always bring his knee up and knee me in the stomach when he was going for a layup. And, I can only take that so long before I get tired of it. And I swept his legs out from underneath him once, and he chased me around the yard and beat the crap out of me. Well, I was an idiot because at the time he was going to school to learn how to cut hair, and I asked him to cut my hair later that day. Well, around this time I had hair that was down to my shoulders, and I just wanted it trimmed up. Well, I sat down to get my hair cut, and I'm sitting there, and he shaves down the middle of my head, and I feel this, and I'm like, he didn't just do that. And I feel it with my hand, and I'm like, my mom's gonna kill me. And of course that's exactly what I said, and he still makes fun of me for that to this day, or will make comments about that to people because he thinks that it's funny. But I had to let him finish shaving my head, and to this day I still shave my head. And but that situation led me going to school bald, of course, and I continued shaving my head. And about 6 months after that, this kid named Ryan, and he was a big kid, he was a popular football player, I met him in the hallway in between classes, and it was just me and him. And his head was shaved. And my hair had grown out some at this point, and he had told me, he's like, you better never shave your hair again. And, I don't know why he said that. I guess he thought, I'm this big, bad football player, and now that my head's shaved, I make it look cool, and I don't want someone like you coming to school with a shaved head anymore. Well, of course, me being me, I made sure that I shaved my head that night and come back to school the next day. Now, he never said anything about it, and I didn't expect him to, because Ryan really wasn't a bad guy. I never had any issues with him. I never had any run-ins with him. I've always wondered what brought that about. I have no idea. My understanding is that later in life he got into drugs pretty bad, and I hope that he has turned his life around and that he has found a way to become a better person for himself and for his family. I never wish negativity on somebody or wish bad on somebody, especially for something that they did as a kid, especially as something as dumb as that. I have more stories about being bullied as a kid, and though some of them aren't nearly as funny, there was a situation when I was in the 6th grade. A kid named Jeremy, he used to beat the crap out of me, and when I say beat the crap out of me, I mean pretty viciously, kicking me in the face and the stomach while I'm curled up in a ball on the ground. And as much as those situations sucked and hurt, I never wished the bad on him that happened on account of me and a kid named Gary. We had a situation where we were standing outside in between classes, and there were some girls in the bathroom, and we decided we're going to hold them in there. And so we're holding the door closed, and they're trying to push it open, and they can't. And of course, we're laughing about it and joking about it. Well, then there's this bigger girl, and what we don't know is that she's going to, ram the door open. And at this time we had moved, and when she hit the door, it slammed open hard, and it hit this kid Jeremy in the back of the head, and it knocked him out, and he got this big contusion on his head, and he missed school for the next few weeks. And even though he had bullied me viciously, I didn't want something like that to happen to him. And me and Gary, we both felt bad about that, and our teachers made us feel even worse about it. And being someone who was bullied by this kid, and then our teachers, they made us feel horrible and said things to us that they shouldn't have. But then when I was bullied, they wouldn't believe it, because they thought that this kid was a nice kid, a good kid, because they hadn't seen anything to believe that he was bullying me like he had been. And so that caused me to have some issues where I didn't trust teachers. And so I wouldn't go to teachers because of being bullied for a long time, because I just felt like my situation was just something I was going to have to deal with, because somebody wasn't going to listen to me, that nobody cared, and that I was just a small kid that was, having to accept the fact that I was going to get beat on. And, that shouldn't have been the situation. And it was what it was, but it also, helped me as an adult, as a parent, for when my daughter was in school, and to talk to her about, bullies and situations where, she may need to talk to an adult or to come to me, and if I need to go to the school and talk to teachers, because I'm not going to be as easy on a teacher as an adult as I was a kid, because of the situations that I'd been through. Well, fortunately, my daughter never had to deal with those type of situations that I dealt with. And her attitude towards situations like that was better than mine. She had a kid, a senior, when she was a sophomore, shoved past her in the hallway and said, "You need to get out of my way. I'm more important than you and better than you." And my daughter stops in her tracks and goes, "Really? With a face like that, you feel that way?" And, that that makes me laugh, because she's quick-witted and quick to, defend herself, stand up for herself, but to put somebody in their place. And I'm proud of her for that. But I wish, I could have been more that way. The kid that hit me with a ruler, my response to him was, you can make fun of me, you can make fun of my sister, you can even make fun of my mom, but you better not make fun of my dog. And, the way I said it, it was angry, like very angry. Like, you can make fun of me, you can make fun of my sister, you can even make fun of my mom. But if you make fun of my dog, if you think you can get away with that, then we're going to have a real problem. And of course, I started laughing. And then, of course, that made, some other people start laughing. Because then they're like, he's making fun of the situation. He's not taking it serious, which means he's not taking this guy serious that's trying to pick on him. But, that's just how I am. And, I would do that. I would even make fun of my teachers in situations like that. I had situations where I had teachers that didn't like me. And I knew that. And I didn't have a problem making fun of them either. We had a situation where I had a math teacher, and he made it very well known in class that he didn't like me. And, at the end of the year, when school's getting ready to be let out, I start giving him crap, and I start making fun of him. And, of course, he's like, I can make your life miserable next year. And, of course, at that point, I apologize, do the right thing. I just air quoted that. But, he shouldn't put himself in that kind of a position as an adult. He shouldn't treat a student that way. But realistically, I shouldn't have been mouthy like I was, and I shouldn't have came back at him and escalated the situation any more than what I had. And, I'm at fault there, and I knew it at the time, and I just didn't care. I was a teenager, I was rebellious, and I had an attitude and a chip on my shoulder. And it took a long time for me to brush that chip off my shoulder. And it took me getting out of school and getting away from those situations to be able to do that. And I think a lot of people have those same feelings about school or those situations if they had been bullied, or has situations where they have teachers that didn't like them or that they didn't get along with very well. Those situations are uncomfortable, and the only way to get out of those is to get out of school and to move on from that time in your life. And I think even being a teenager, we understand that, we realize that, and I think that's why a lot of kids are ready to get out of school. I was never in a hurry to be an adult, but I was in a hurry to get out of school to some extent. But I also knew that that meant losing friends, and I wasn't ready for that. And I struggled with that for a long time going into adulthood. And it's something that I sit here and I think about it, and I understand that that's still one of my struggles in life, because I never regained those friendships or replaced those friendships as an adult. And so I don't have those outlets that I had when I was younger. I don't have those friendships that I had when I was younger, where I can talk to somebody, where I can vent to somebody, or where I can, just have somebody to rely upon when I need to talk about life or how I feel about life in the moment. And I hate to say that, but it's true. And a lot of that is because I ended up in a position where I had gotten a job and gotten into management at a very young age. And my social life consisted of work, but I also didn't allow myself to have friendships or build friendships at work because of me being in a management position. So as an adult, I didn't have ways to make friends, and therefore I've struggled as an adult. And now that I no longer work in that capacity, and those people are no longer in my lives, and I got health issues, and like my dad, he would call me and talk to me and say, well, have you heard from anybody from your old job? And I'm like, no, and I don't think I will, because they were just people that worked for me, not people that really cared for me, not in that aspect anyway. And if there's anyone that did, I worked with some people that were older that I think the world of, but those people unfortunately have passed away at this point. So my outlet is going to be this podcast. It's going to be any potential listeners out there that choose to listen to my words or that choose to respond. If anyone is wanting to interact with me or have conversations with me or wants to come on and talk with me, I'm willing to have those discussions on air and share those with the world. I'm tired of being in a situation where I feel alone, or at least feel lonely. And that's part of what this project is for me, is for a way to dig myself out of that situation. Because I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. I know I'm not the only one in life that feels empty inside at times. That there's other people out there that have the same feelings, not about themselves, but about their situations and about life in general. And I hope that I can connect with some of those people and that we can develop some kind of friendship through the internet or through this project. If that makes me sound sad or pathetic, well, I guess I'll be sad and pathetic. But at least I won't be sad and pathetic alone. I joke, but I'm also serious. If there's anyone out there that would like to participate or interact with me, the email is unmuffledbanter@gmail.com. I can be reached there or on Twitter at Joey Misbehaves. I welcome any and all conversation and hope to have some kind of growing community for those that are in need, that suffer from mental illness or just loneliness. This is about the resilience of overcoming our darkest times and bettering ourselves for those around us, for those that love us, for those that care about us, and for ourselves. We want to overcome those things that we struggle with to better ourselves, so we don't feel lonely, so that we don't feel like we're a burden to others. That's something that I struggle with sometimes on a daily basis, is feeling like I'm a burden to other people, that I can't reach out and say, hey, I need help, or I'm not okay, because I feel like it's too much for other people to deal with, or that they shouldn't have to deal with it. And, that's just unfair, not only to me, but to them. I should be able to say that I'm not okay. And I do. And on the days that I'm not being an idiot, I do say that I'm not okay. I do say that I need help. But there's times where I struggle with that. And I struggle with that hard. Like it's a weight that's on my chest. And I can't lift it off. And it makes it hard to breathe. It makes it hard to lift my head above the water. It's like I'm in an open sea, and not only am I drowning, but I'm dying of thirst at the same time. And, that's a crazy analogy to think about, drowning and dying of thirst, but that's exactly how I put it. And to me, that's how I feel, and it's a very real feeling, a very dark feeling, and a very scary one. Even though I feel that way, I want to feel like I did when I was younger, during the days that I fought bullies. I want to fight depression and anxiety, and I want to help others fight depression and anxiety. And that's what this is about. It's about helping myself, but wanting to help others. I talked earlier about standing up to bullies, and that wasn't necessarily, for my own well-being as a child, because it definitely didn't bring me any kind of glory by any means. if anything, all it brought me was more pain. I'm a firm believer that someone always gets hurt in a fight, and it was usually me. I'll be honest about it. And, I wasn't a good fighter by any means. And so the times that, it turned into more than just a verbal confrontation and it turned into a physical one, I was usually the one that ended up on the wrong side of that. Especially when I would chew off a little more than what I should have. And, I talked about manipulation, or manipulating my mom, which I'm not, proud of. But I also manipulated situations at school to try to make myself look more tough than what I actually was. And that came back to bite me on multiple occasions. And, it should have. Because I wasn't a tough kid by any means. And I shouldn't have been portraying myself that way. I should have continued portraying myself as the kid that was taken up for everybody. That was something that I was proud of. I wasn't proud of being the kid that was doing the picking. And, there was a few instances where I turned out to be the bully instead of being the one protecting kids from the bully. And I'm not proud of that. And I wish that if I could go back, there's a few things that I would have changed. And there's very little in my life that I would change, but that is something that I would. And I doubt that those kids even remember those things, to be honest, because they were so small or insignificant to their lives. But I remember, and I know one of them would have forgiven me because he did, because he ended up being one of my best friends in life and would have done anything in the world for me. And I would have done anything in the world for him. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But sometimes life throws us a bag of rocks, and we either let it go or we carry it. And I chose to carry that one for a long time. We'll get more into that in the next episode. But until then, folks, this is Joey Misbehaves, and I hope everybody has a good week.
You've been listening to UnMuffled Banter with Joey Misbehaves. Our passion is to speak to those warriors out there, fighting battles within themselves. And together, we come together as a family and share stories of growth, resilience, and the beauty of finding humor even in the darkest times. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But to contact us, send an email at unmuffledbanter@gmail.com and find Joey on Twitter at Joey Misbehave. Please know that if you're struggling and you just need someone to talk to, you can call the Suicide and Crisis Hotline. The number is simple, 988. The person on the other end will talk to you as long as you need. See you next time on UnMuffled Banter.